people from the Motley Historical Society are here, and people from the Pillager Historical Society, and of course residents from Sylvan Township and the Pillager and Peter area. I want to welcome each one of you. And each one of you have if you want to speak, Brewster or Dave will be coming out with the mic and speak right into the mic. I understand it will be taped, and so we're looking forward to just having a good time. I mean, I'm here I'm getting pretty old now, and 88 years old now, so it's just nice to be able to come here and do this. I did graduate from the Pillager High School here back in '54, and Pillager has always been, well, our address has always been Pillager, and my granddad, my folks. My dad never lived in the place, but he was born on my farm. He moved 2 miles over across from the Casino Church. I lived there until I bought my granddad's farm back in 1958, and Granddad came to Motley back in 1897, and we had 11 children on my farm, and my wife is right down here on my left, and we had between us, we had five children, and so it's just good to see each one here tonight. And I really want to thank Sylvan Township and Motley and the historic area here, Pillager, Sue Van Hall, and Dave Johnson for putting this thing together. I mean, it's we might think it was kind of something that wasn't too important, but folks, it really is important because this is history. And as we go through, I've got a lot of great grandkids, grandchildren. They're not interested, the grandchildren, they're not really that interested yet, but in years to come, I mean, Pillager is going to be here for a long time, don't forget that. I remember when I was a kid, I used to like to sit and peek, and Phil Ford Swords hardware store at town, and listen to John Devine and the Dorseys and those old guys talk, and Ray Peterson, he kept saying that, Pillager will never die. Pillager will never die. And finally, after I heard that so many times, I said, well, why do you say that, Ray? He said, there's too much farming around Pillager. And we got a good school, we got a good bank, and we got a good creamery. And of course, that's the truth. We do have all those things. But when you start in Pillager, the farming part of it, you start right west of Pillager here by the Gulswick Farm, and you work your way all the way north up through Richmond area and the Casino Flats, and then on up to Leader, and there's 80-acre, 100-acre farms all the way. And back there in the 1900s, those farms were very productive with especially kids. When I was a kid, actually, I could hear 4 country school bells from our place when the wind was just right. And there was that many kids in the area. We'll say did it when sorry. Here, go ahead, Dave.
My job here, and by the way, for those of you that don't know, this mic's down the way, so if you can't hear me, raise your hand, but I'll keep it close up here. We got that one tuned up because Gordon's got the stuff that's most important. There's one word that I will mention tonight that we just bothered completely the end, and many of you know Gordon know what that word is. We're staying away from that. That's my job, keeping all of that category. So, editor, Gordon is here because Gordon has been involved in Creamery Associations for an awful long time. Gordon, why don't you talk a little bit about your background with the local boards and on up, and maybe just get your credibility boosted a bit there to just you're better out.
Well, the people in the area have been awfully good to me. I was always elected to these boards, and I did appreciate the town board and the Land Lakes Creamery Board here and local district board, our voting unit board, and the state board, and I ended up on the National Land Lakes Board, which was a few years back now, quite a few years when I quit milking cows. I milked cows for myself and the boys and helped roast milk the dam for 50 years.
You bet. And talking about your background there, you started farming on your own farm in 1959, I think you said. Your grandfather came here when?
My grandfather came in 1897, and all there was a little slim log house with a dirt floor. He had 5 kids, and the oldest one was 5, and they moved in and went from there to 11 kids.
That's how Martin Bill got started.
Well, yeah.
If there's, you can't look at that law, it's kind of part of the territory up there. Creameries, like basically creameries, schools, churches, you already mentioned that. That's what was kind of the glue that held some of these communities together. Creameries are very important, kind of the center of both Congress and conversation. Most towns, when I grew up, had a creamery. It wasn't just the day at Italy, but there were a lot of things they put on beside that. Explain a little bit, in addition to just doing the creamery work, taking in milk and cream and producing butter and so on. What else? How did creameries involve themselves in the community in other ways?
Well, to start with, there was some private creameries, and of course they were owned mainly by the business people in the area, and that they didn't last too long. But it wasn't until 1908 that my granddad and there was 30 other people, Warren and Schweikers, just people all over the area around Mate there that decided they wanted to own creamery, and that was when they organized that creamery. 1911, they organized the creamery opening in Pillager. 1917, they organized the cooperative creamery up in Leader.
So, back up just a little bit, because your granddad was farming in, what'd you say, 1895?
1897.
1897, or other farmers are on at the same time. What did they do with their milk at that time before the creamers were done?
Well, my dad tells about when he was a kid. Of course, my granddad died in 1917. He never did own a car. Of course, you always had to have the horses take some cream and everything in town. And what they did at the time was they would have their own number, cream can number, and they would set it on the dock outside of the depot there in Bobby. And Dad talked, and then the train would come through 2 times a day. The train would come through and haul the cream itself up and pick it up to the train, haul it to probably Duluth. I think Duluth was where. See, the markets was out east. That's where the market was. So they moved the product to the east, and that's where they'd churn the butter up there before we had the creamery. Churn the butter up there, and then they would send the checks back to the farmers.
So the first creamery I remember is the one that your granddad helped start in Bombay, that in 1908.
In 1908, that's the first he sold his milk, and that's the first one I remember calling had heavy milk haulers that picked them out in the country. And of course, I never was involved in no management at time, something like that, because that was all I was on the board of directors, and your creamery could be no better than what your board was and your manager was. And the managers used to tell us at our board meetings that it was the milk haulers. It was the milk haulers that really made the creamery, because they were the ones that were in in on the farms and picking up the milk, bringing the milk checks every day that were theirs, and they make great sacrifices for that.
I've got a picture on the screen. This is the first unit creamery, the original one. The creamery sits right there, about what the creamery is today. That apparently, according to the paperwork I got out, there's some pictures out there. That's the ice house that provided the ice that they made it for the creamery. Now, kind of interesting thing about that creamery, I think the creamery that's currently here, that's the third one. You seem to have a history of burning them now, and that kind of a tradition.
Well, of course, everything was run with steam and fire. You read these books. I got the 2 books here, the original books, the number 1 books from the Motley Creamery and Pillager Creamery. And Dave's got Lear Creamery up there. And when they eat it, the big thing back there to start the creamery was cordwood. They paid $2 a cord most of the time, and had green cordwood, dry cordwood, and a lot of times that steam engine was probably what would start a fire.
I noticed looking over some of those historical records and stuff, the price of wood was always an important part of your board meeting. It fits, have it to make the whole operation right. So, when I was growing up, the creamery leader, the leader one here, that's the building that I grew up being the creamery. I'm pretty sure that all of the creameries operate similar, so I got a couple of questions for you. Right over here, the platform where the cannons went in, off the truck, off to pick up whatever they brought into it. And they magically came out the other side. When I was a kid, didn't know what the heck happened in there. What's the process? They went in the door, what happened?
Well, we had a manager and we had an assistant. And the assistant was the one that normally would farm lean milk, cream outside, and come in through a couple of little doors, get inside. The first thing that helper would do was pull the lid off and check it and smell it and see if it was sweet or sour. And the sour would go in one tank, and the sweet cream, because there was a 4 cents only difference in butter with the sweet and sour cream. And that was the process. And then the next thing that would happen was he would dump this into a bath tender, and it would weigh how many pounds he got and write down, and then it would go from there to, and eventually when we churned in Pillager. I know we churned on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I don't know how often, if there was people here that worked, maybe hadn't worked in the creamery. I don't know, Norman, if you know how many days they churned Pillager. But I mean, normally it was 3 days that they were churning.
So, you mentioned they checked, the valuable part of milk was spread. What happened, there's skim milk, did they take it back home again? What happened to the skim milk?
Well, they would separate her, and separate her there, and they would end up with some buttermilk. And there was people around town that would take the buttermilk, and there was people. That was the milk that came out when they were making butter. But the skim milk, which you mentioned, you know, every farmer in those days, we had a lot of 80-acre and 160-acre farms. There was a lot of them. And the farmers, it probably had a couple of horses, 3 horses, and they had chickens. And the skim milk would go to the chickens, and of course everybody had hogs, and that would go. And also you would separate your milk, and you raise your own young stock, of course, and so your cows would get to skim milk.
So, creameries, the number of creameries or where the creameries are located finally depended on the density of the dairy farmers. I know we talked about Randall and their leader. We say they had one in Cushing. There was a couple of them in Brainerd, couple of them in Brainerd. Did they experiment there then from the Creamers or what?
Going back to the skim mill thing, that was a big. Walt Fisher was the manager over at Mott at the Farmers Club at Creamery Mott, and he tried to persuade the board over there to start taking milk, but Motley board could not do that. So in 1942, well, the Pillager board here, Civil Brethren was on it, and there was Dallas, and there was Franzens, and there was different names in there. And you know probably who they were. And anyway, they had the foresight, the Creamery board, and this is what kept the Pillager Creamery open to 77 was the fact that we started, I shouldn't say the Pillager started in 42. Pillager started buying bulk milk. Yes.
So before that was all crease undertaken. The picture we got up there right now is a beautiful, very elaborate cream separator. We had one in our cars. I wasn't anything near like that. And by the time I was old enough to remember that we were not separating cream, we just selling the whole milk. Tree truck will come and pick them up by the can. I bet you had it here in the liter. But this particular separator is really, as you can see, is used for a deck piece right now. But if you want to see it, you go to the Randall Creamery, and it's now a full shop. Great. If I was a closer, I'd go there all the time. It's really well done. But this sits in the corner right, as you go in the door. And would this be one that be in a farm, or is this more like one that would be in the creamery itself?
Well, it's in front of rooms, put it that way. No, the separators that we had to create by hand. Until P.H. Sword was going out of business, and I can remember my dad went in there, and P.H. Sword, he was also the international harvest distributor in town here, and had a real good hardware store. Dale Anderson's grandfather, Reed. And anyway, my dad bought the last new separator, which was an electric separator. I was glad to soon have to get away from hand clays.
When I was back when I grew up, the separator was bolted down to the concrete in barns, but we never separate anything. But this kid, it had the shaft that came up and fought it, that drove the cylindrical stuff that would do the separation. Well, anything I ever saw do in my entire life was we keep the bags from the can, they're little thin cardboard tins, we bend them just right, they make really great, so I can flour it, we wind that thing on it, faster we go by it, take off, you go out. That's as much cream as our country separation separator. It was rare to use. So then everybody was, and used their own liter that they were sending a full milk kit. But early, I remember reading a liter one, one of the private ones, before the creamery was built in 1917. Private one was farmers would bring it all in. He would separate it and send them back home with the skim milk. Would that be kind of a common procedure?
Yeah, it would be. I don't know. I guess, I've heard some of the old timers talk about they didn't have a separator, and so they would just skim on the top, leave it set, and skim on the top and make butter out of that, and probably sell butter to take butter, kettle butter around town and took in the average. If they didn't have creamery, what you're mentioning probably was farmers like that didn't have no separator.
And the cream always comes to the top, right? Ring. That's the base of the top. And I think kind of added that early guy that was just separating the cream, buying the cream from them, and then he'd send them back home. That was one of the private ones, and that one didn't work out so well. There's a record I was reading. I got a couple of them out there on tables out there. Apparently he quit paying them. So then he went broke because he had to tell that they wanted to be made out the finished.
Getting back to the Allers just a little bit, at Pillager, our Allers I can remember as a kid were
gardens. Like,
Over at my day was Chris Birga, Floyd, and Leonard Rarigan. I went and Walt Kane. They were cream haulers, the Pillager. And then in Motley, we had Dale Carlson boys, and we had Al McKeel, and Floyd, and Leroy Louts. And of course, one fellow that old milk for years for Pillager was Ken and Ferd Allen. You would remember him. And of course, the Farber boys, they were more from Montclair, or the Staples, when Pillager Creamery. The other creameries, Staples had closed quite a few years. I don't even remember even the Staples. It was there in the Wattill sometime in Borders, but then most of those people, Caprills and Al, those people came over here in Pillager.
this is a picture of the Pillager Creamery. It's probably one of the few that was the original and still stands south of the Pillager School. That's the original building, and it's still there. Now it's so frightening old how, and it's all been like doing the storing thing. But inside that creamery, when people brought their cream, Bill, how many people did it take to operate typical cream? What would it do?
Well, the main one, of course, that got paid the best was the manager. And he always did pretty good. And then after that, it was up to the manager to pick the assistants and hire whoever they wanted to hire. And it took in Pillager here, I would say it probably took about 3 in the creamery. You had wash cans. And then we did put in I remember in Pillager here when they put in, I don't really remember them, but when they did put in a power can washer, that's when they built over there on the east side, built that addition on the east side of the creamery. I don't think, this is the north side of the creamery. Somebody here, is that the north side of the creamery? Then the one in this end, and they put an elk in.
There is. Yeah, there's the same building.
That's that building down there. That's the office. That was built later on. That was built on probably sometime in the 40s.
So this is the north. This is the north side that faces the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the creamery cat probably went in there or came out there or vice versa. And something happened to him and all it became butter, right?
Yeah.
So we said that the manager was typically, we always had a guy in the creamery where it's called the butter maker. Now he's also automatically the manager. Was he the guy just a monkey, but
He's responsible for the butter that comes out of the truck, yes.
and so that took cream and some other ingredients, and out of it, some people had a knack for maybe with butter, and for his work so good.
Well, Pillager did have a real prize when Howard Light was a new one state, and many awards Howard Light did.
Remember another thing, this is just a dumb memory, but it's a memory I had as a kid. When we'd have a big event, it'd be the 4th of July or Creamery picnic or something like that, every community had a cottage, right? So they would go down with a 10-gallon cream can and put in the right amount of coffee, whatever that was, fill with water, put the steam hose in there, and that thing would crack and make noise, and we thought it was going to blow up, and heated it up to good hot coffee, carry it back up to the leader hall, and apparently, I think Brown was in there, but I think what happened, and Nick just ended that upset for a while. Brown to call down below his spigot, and he came out with just ending. But it's good. I bet you every creamery made thought is that something.
They knew just how many pounds of coffee to put in a 10-gallon cream can.
Yeah, do you know what that formula is?
No, I don't know what. Yeah. But the commercial club, when Pillager had 400, we had 400 at our annual meeting here one time, and that was after the commercial club joined up with the creamery, and the shipping association was taken over by the creamery. Prior to that, Swiper Hadley Swiftburg ran the shipping association. We had 3 co-ops. I remember 3 co-ops in Pillager. I'm sure Norman does, and Martin, some of the rest of you too. The three co-ops were the Creamery and the Shipping Association. And Ed Dorsey, I can remember Ed Dorsey talking at the 50th anniversary of the Pillager Creamery, talking about when he was a kid, how he would go out in the country and drive cattle to the end of Pillager by the stockyards, and they would probably have 3-4 car loads, and the Shipping Association would send them on down to South St. Paul. And then the other co-op was the farmer. There was the oil farmers oil co-op, and I don't know if any of you remember that or not, but well, I'm sure some of you do because I can remember that real well. And that was run by Doc Lucas, and then Elmer Daly was the last one. No, well, then Sam Richardson at the end, Sam Richardson had a station in that building, and that was also where they had the coal. Pillager, the Creamery, and the Shipping Association had an old scale over there right on the east side, and the coal would come in carload lots, and the Creamery would handle the business then, and school would get their coal there, and so would people around town that need coal.
So these co-ops then, I got a picture of that certificate up there for the co-ops. So all of the patrons of the co-op that were members, they were given a certificate of value. They have buy-in to it, or
You had to buy a bunch.
they own stock in the fraternity. Yeah.
Texas Bank on Herman Girls. That was George Girl. Many of you knew George Girls. Herman Girl was George Girls' dad.
Pretty fancy certificate.
Yeah, $10.
There's another picture up here. It's up the big barn. Okay, those big that fun. That milk wire that was 200 feet long.
It's a mile north of the casino church, down 1.25 west. And that barn was, my dad talked about when they hauled 2 loads of lumber every day past the place over there where I live now, when they were building that barn in 1910. And Earl Armour was the last one of the dirt milk cows in that barn.
How many cows would an operation like that have?
And nobody ever filled it out. Nobody ever built it.
I don't like cows that much. I wouldn't have built in this. Aaron's just taking me back a little bit. If this is your grandfather's farm?
Yeah, that's the barn that we added on this barn, but that was the barn that my granddad built, 1910. And Grandpa that was his steam engine. He would start thrashing at Motley and thrash up through the Richmond Valley there, and end up towards Leader with steam engine. And he'd stack thrash when the time he got to home, and he'd stack thrash from there to Leader. And they said he never got home with the steam engine until probably along in fact, just about Thanksgiving time. But you can imagine the help that it took. You had to have a fireman, you had to for the steam engine. It took 2 people for sure, maybe 3. Have the water wagon. I think there's a water wagon right alongside of it there. That was the big thing with the steam engine. You had to make sure you can talk to any steam engine guy, and he'll tell you the most important thing about the coal and wood and all that will take care of itself. It's the water. You have to make sure you always got water in that boiler.
Yeah, again, and many of you, and we're going to ask some questions later on in the future of this thing here, but many of you probably living on a farm, you experience the same thing that these harvesting was really a community event. Harvesting, this corn, whatever it was. Yeah, it was really important that everybody kicked in. I know my Uncle Art Benson, you know Art, that shirt. He was on the board up there and Lear. Well, he had an old lean and he had the thrash machine, so he just made the one around and did that as well. but everybody came with their wagon, and some with horses and some with tractors, but everybody was there because they wanted everybody to come and help them and their turn. So it really got to be a community event. And each place we went, I thought one of the innocent king was the wives of that particular place, the wife would put on a dare. And I think they were all trying to outdo one instead of so, oh, did we eat well? So they came back and bad. So later on, probably in the 20s, well, I'll go big guys get born. What was the relationship with the local drink? That was locally owned, what was the relationship with them and say, Land Lakes or Mid-America or AMPI? How did that work? How did that fit?
Well, yeah, it was back during the war that Creameries built all these drying maps. And that was the big thing with them was to get the powder and skim from the creameries, because up till that point, creameries were all making butter, and they had their separators and stuff. But what did they do as a skim? And a lot of it, there was a problem getting rid of that skim. And once a creamery had it, the farmers would have to then pick it up for something else. So that was where Land Lakes came in 1921. And they started the Pillager Creamery in 1942, get back to Pillager. Pillager started separating and selling the skim to Brainerd at Land Lakes Drying Plant. I worked in that plant for 3 years in 57, 58, 59, before I went full-time farming.
Did all of the creameries have a feed store associated with them, or were they often independent out of that sub work?
Some of them did, and most of them didn't. Most of them, some would have a private. In Montlake, for instance, when Walters took over the creamery, then at that point, it was turned over to, I'm talking about the name of Walters, to beer,
That was
Chris Beer.
that beer.
Yeah.
That was what, 1950? You said somewhere in there, 40 and 50.
Yeah, 49. It was
49. So beer industry has been around for a while as well.
it was.
Irv says he's retired, but you might think people, did Irv retire? I didn't think so. Irv said he's retired for the piece. Still know with the kids, but I'll have to see that later. So, all right, show of hands.
Yeah.
Show of hands here. How many people went into the feed stores and knew where the feed was and to remember the smell of that? Yeah. Remember the smell? That molasses and seed and all the seed and stuff. That was just a great smell. Did you go down to? You want to go down to Freedom? There's still a feed store right next to the Swanson store. Swanson store, and it will bring memories back to you that if you ever had a kid in a feed store.
Is there anybody out there I mean, I here to learn something from you guys. And Bruce is right up here, our only son. Do we have a mic that we'll take around?
Get to it in a minute, but I gotta get more out of you yet. There's more of you I haven't said yet. Then we'll get to that. Well, and then we'll say that word we can't say. So, the other thing that was in Leader, it was connected right to it, was what we call a locker plant, because not everybody had their freezer for their beef. When they butcher, they rent space in the locker plant, put it in there, and just go down and take whatever they needed out when they went down and bet. Was that a common thing, or were the locker plants generally associated with what's Craigslist?
Later, it's the only one I recall.
Everybody else was fancy. They used private freezer.
They were private butchers with their own plant.
I knew, yeah.
Pillager had uptown here had a freezing building that they would bring them meat over from Brandon and leave it at Pillager here, and it was a cold place to go in there, but they all had lockers in there, and you help yourself to your own meat. You had a key, everything was locked. You had your own key.
I know people down here had a lot more money than they were able to figure it out. They could go out and sell it, bear cupping. You had a freezer and everything.
And it would be butchered over in Brainerd, and they'd bring it over here and freeze it when they put it in the locker.
So you had the co-ops and you go to every town, very similar operation. They all had their individual board. They had 3 or 4 people working in the creamery. So most creams were pretty typical. But then there was some consolidation and closure started taking place. When did that kind of begin, and why was that?
That was the biggest thing that hit Modley from 1908 till 1948. They had 3 years in Motley that they just didn't make any money, and so they had the foresight, because they never went bulk milk. They just stayed in the cream business, and so they closed the creamery. And Les Carlson was a cousin, and he said that the last big check, when it was ready to go out, the banker Edgar Johnson of the Cream were kind of excited over there at the bank, and they came to the board meeting and they passed out $500 notes to each one of the board members. There was one board member that wouldn't sign it, and they passed out these notes, and the banker said, "We're not sending the payroll out until you fellows sign," with it. And it was at that point that the Motley board decided to liquidate, and of course we were members of what their dad was, and they got every penny. When they paid off their $10, when it showed up there and paid off, everybody got them, but 10 every little batches. Are you going to the next step then?
So let me get that straight though. So they want the board members to sign a note that they'd be responsible,
Right.
for money, right? That
If there wasn't enough to cover, that the bank was at the point it was just getting in.
okay, that too shaky. Yeah.
But they didn't pay off. No farmers lost any money, and the Motley Cooperative Creamery treated the farmers right.
And that, so I remember Leader we had that was associated with Land Lakes. What role did these, I don't know, were they kind of a railroad operation? Were they the ones that took their cream, or what happened as they came in? They came in around the 20s, right?
Yeah, well, that was at the point when quality work started coming along, was in 1920, and that was Land Lakes' big thing. And Leader was a member, and Motley was, and the Pillager. Of course, it was kind of shaky. Sometimes they was going to get out of Land Lakes, because Land Lakes, but their thing was to send cargo lots, put the butter in Land Lakes cartons, fill carloads, and send it to New York, Chicago, and places like that, where the market was much better.
That's where their butter from Pillager was sold?
Yep, down the road. Yeah, and if it was in Land Lakes cartons, once Land Lakes picked it up, whether they picked it up in, Pillager had their own, we did make some butter, own butter here at Pillager too. But they were in Browerville, we had two, when we became landlords and Browerville started with business down there, they had two continuous churns. And when you make butter in Pillager, it costs you 3 cents a pound to make butter. And with that continuous churn down in Browerville, we had two of them in the plant there, and they could make butter for half a cent a pound.
Half a cent a pound. So that just put economic pressure on local creameries. Eventually they just close.
Well, there was people that still like Pillager butter. I mainly peddled a lot of butter to Arnie's up in Staples and the local Anderson's uptown here and different stores. There was people that wanted the Pillager butter.
How much would a pound of butter sell for then? In a store?
I have no idea. There's people out there probably know more about it.
A little more than it is today, or a little less than this day.
All I know is when I started selling milk, I got $2.50 a 100 for my milk. And that was it. It had to test 3.5, and all I was 25 cents.
So, there was a time, I recall, when NFO showed up, National Farmers Association Organization. They did kind of fill us in on,
Well, I would look at that probably different today than what I did when I was back there. I was just starting out farming, and I had farm debt with the farm to pay for, machinery to pay for, cattle to pay for. We had five kids, and my wife worked full-time with me on the farm, so we never had an excess of money. And of course, with the NFO, I can see where older farmers probably kind of fell into that thing because, the prices were better and they had holding actions that were going to hold back. But Pillager never signed, and Pillager never signed. And as far as I know, Pequot might have, I don't know for sure about Pequot, they might have signed the contract.
so that was, I think, in the, that was in maybe the early 60s, mid-60s.
Young 6.
Does that contribute to the decline and the kind of the dismantling of creameries as well? Would that farther or probably
No, not necessarily. Farmers just kept getting bigger. And many of us know that parents, older parents, pretty much everybody up until I would say 1950, we were full-time. Anybody on a farm didn't work out. Unless their wife might teach school or something like that. Most people didn't work out. They just farmed. Well, then after that, farmers started getting more working up income.
Yeah, I know that was the case. So many people in the community in the 90s, there were a few that died on their farm and never ever worked out. Like most of them started working out outside the farm. Maybe because it's easier to travel with business to work. I don't know. At the peak, Pillager had about 100 patrons total. That was in many of the. How big were some of these creameries at Branthel and Bondley and Pillager? How big they were?
I don't know what the numbers for sure, but I know we had 40 over Motley when they organized. And Pillager, the best year we had was 19. When we closed, we still had 119 producers in Pillager in 1977. And the reason we had that many was because neither had quit taking milk, had quit taking cans, and other creameries had quit taking cans. And Pillager was still, we took cans in Pillager right up until we closed the creamery. And then when the creamery was closed here in Pillager, the board, Sobieski sent a truck up here. We sold our truck and our cans to Sobieski, and they hauled canned milk around here for a little while. But by then, the bulk customers were going direct into Browerville.
I don't know. There was one operation that was a little different than Crane's around here, and that was the Aldrich Cheese Factory. How did that operate differently than co-ops we're talking about?
Well, all the creameries, of course, we had local butter, the farmers took local. But Aldrich cheese was only cheese, and they just made cheese, and they had a retail store. And just exactly when they started the retail store, I don't know for sure, but I do know that there was a time in the year they had probably a little more demand for cheese than there was for butter. And so there was times that our management would be very concerned about Aldrich coming in and taking another 1 or 2 truckloads of milk away from us.
Stealing the milk?
Well, yes, the farmers made the choice. You could sell whatever you wanted to sell.
So could they, is that true of the ones that were probably self-preservation, they wouldn't want to do this, but the members of the co-op said Pillager co-op or Randall co-op were they obligated to sell their milk to that co-op, or they could still take it wherever they want?
You take it out. We had farmers. I never sold a pound of milk any place but to Lambeau Lakes, to the village of Creamery here and to Browardville. Like, there was farmers that would jump back and forth. Yes, they would go where, but they get upset as the management get upset. And
No, because they
had the right to go wherever they wanted.
was there much difference in price if they went from one place or another? What was the
The only price difference was, like I said, in Aldrich at times they would pay a little bit more. But then when there was excess of milk, the local quality was really better.
Sure. So, you mentioned washing cans. I don't know, how many did you work inside one of the creameries at one time or another? Or did everybody else work with Creamery? I did as a kid. They would have us come in a couple times a year and wash cans. If I remember, well, I know I remember, right, that I had a hole in my trailer. We had gloves with a hole in the glove. We washed those cans with some kind of an acid concoction, did we not? I don't care. I think you just stain them typically every day, but once in a while you wash. Now, how often did that take place, and how in the world did they get 14-year-old kids to do it?
I can remember those big tanks, and they didn't have a power washer inside of them. And we were quite concerned. We had a big tank here, we had different operators and people getting inside of those tanks. I spent myself more than 3 years on the drying plant over in Brainerd. I spent a lot of time inside one of those tanks, and I'll tell you, you had acid. You wash those tanks with acid, and you'd never get by with that kind of thing today, but we did back then.
So back to just to kind of backtrack here a little bit. You may have mentioned this, but I missed it. So they were drying the skim milk where you worked. Is that correct? Where would they send that? Where would that get used?
As far as I remember, we loaded boxcar after boxcar, and Norman stationed a lot of boxcars alongside of the milk plant there at Brainerd, and those cars with government. It was government powder, and all I know, as far as I know, overseas or how they did it after that, I have no idea. But we loaded. Every day we would load a couple boxcars full of powdered skim in bags or barrels.
So, one other, I don't know if it was related to Creameries or not, but I remember hauling little pigs down in the Motley. Was that part of a creamery operation or a feed store operation, or it was right next to the bar? So maybe it was a bar operation. I'm not sure.
Probably the bar.
Where the money got spent. But where did that come from? Is that a creamery thing?
That nothing to do with the creamery. We never bought no pigs. Motley never, I swear that no leader never bought any pigs. That was all done before my time in the shipping association.
Just people looking for feeder pigs.
Yeah, definitely the shipping association.
Make it. I remember you take a pickup load down there, and the guys would jump up on a running board and start offering prices as you go through that you feel on it. Too scary. Oh, dude. So, back to the Boston one. It kind of went food, and you said I think at 48. And was it that Chris Walters came in and he kind of started it up again?
No, and I'm sorry to say that the Peterson brothers from Wisconsin came in, and it was at that time they were a private outfit making cheese in Wisconsin. They made big promises to Montlake, and because they were there for 1 year, and my dad hadn't been to the bank for a while, and we lost 2 milk checks in part of the dump, cream checks, I should say, because he was selling cream there. He lost 2 cream checks, and they went broke. That really hurt the Montlake area. So he was just there they were there, they never got nothing much out of it. Well, then a fellow by the name of Walters had a little bit of money, and he came in 1949 over at Montlake, and he paid cash. He advertised in the paper, cash only, unless you wanted to wait 2 weeks for your cream. They had him cream it, but he just bought cream, and my dad was real happy with Mr. Walters. Did a wonderful job as far as, and everybody got paid, and their checks were good.
And this is the second, maybe the third. I think it's the second Montlake Creamery, and that's the one that still stands over the right, just north of the school, I believe it is. I was over. I can see the school in the background too. So it's just east of Bierger's Feet, a couple of blocks. But so that's the one that was closed, and he reopened it and did cash to restore the faith in the creamery.
The original creamery burned in '34 at the same time, about the same year as the Leader Creamery building. They were wooden buildings, and at that point, Montlake 34 built this new building. I don't know, what was your building up at Leader? Was that wood, or what was all that?
If you look, and I got a question for you, that stack that's there, and I did the Leader one in a minute, that stack that's up here, is that the stack for the steam engine?
Yep.
That what that was for?
That's steam engine.
And then Leader, very similar looking building, and they got that stack up there in the back. That must be where the steam engine is back there by Leader. When that one got replaced with the brick one too. So you got there and burned out.
Well, I don't know. I don't suppose Leader at the Leader never even had electricity. Leader, the electricity, rural electric came in 47 in our area, in 48 north of Montlake. When did electricity, Croydon Power, bringing up lines into Leader? Do you remember, or have you ever heard?
No, I don't know. We always had electricity when I was alive that I could remember. I remember when I was born. Delvic. But at any rate, they had electricity. We had a few neighbors, the Spellmans and the Underdollies, like a few others. They didn't put electricity in for a long time. But nearly everyone, I recall. So the 50s must came in around 49, 50, something like that. So that's what the steam engine request was required.
Yes, to generate. Over in Land Lakes and Brandon, we have 2 steam engines. We had a 500 horsepower steam engine, and we had a 350 horsepower steam engine.
Okay, now, are you ready for question?
Yeah.
Grace, gonna help me? Make sure that they keep the mic really close to their mouth, because this one is not as loud as that one. We got a question. Or Warden really like more information, because he wants to make sure that he knows everything he did. Hey, Kurt.
Yeah.
The Randall Creamery is pretty fancy. So when the Randall Creamery was built, was there some talk in the communities about the fancy Randall Creamery? Because it's, got a lot of decorative bricks and mortar.
What was the question again?
Randall Creamery is pretty name badge to the rest of them. Did they have a lot of money, or why did they get carried away?
Yeah, I have to say, they had more farmers right direct around there, and that was a nice many-story building. They might have been in some other things too, other than just cream.
We had a question. They had Menzies Creameries after free separator everything, but I never that was a different beyond the pot. Yeah, they did have that. They got right up stuff. That's it. And the plant wasn't part of it. Was where it is.
Yes.
Something with the pain. I grew up like this village of Dean Madison, and I worked for a dairy farmer out there. It was George Wickham. And he was selling us and working on all of that up. That there was a collection of plants in a cheese factory at the old Wills Garden. That's how being with this. Yes, you read all that.
I had heard about that. George, I knew George well. And yeah, George, there was a cheese factory up there, kettle cheese locally, but George, I never heard where they marketed it.
I got one quick story here on Coleman. I was with MPI for quite a few years. There was a talk about the transition from sour cream to sweet cream, but that's kind of what made Land O'Lakes from and separate them from everybody else. They sold sweet cream butter. Well, MPI, so they did too, but they had one silo that was bad, and that they were huge, a whole silo, and so they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't really want to, dump it down the drain, and so they made some butter out of it and sent it down to Chicago and sold it as old-fashioned sour cream butter. And they bought it like crazy. That's good. Anybody else? Tin. And on its curve, Martin Hard. So it's pretty close to your mouth to the year. The kid. And the creamery memory I had is some information my dad did to the event on. Back in 70s, well, years ago, they always had the creamery board being everywhere after school. And they'd have a dinner there, and then afterwards they'd have an eating. And us boys, we decided we were going to cut out that meeting, explore the school. So we were exploring the school, and a lot of the people here that grew up in those school remember the old fire escapes they had there. They were tin. And I decided to slide down one of the fire escapes. And I got right to the bottom, and there was a big hunk of ice on the bottom. And I hit my tailbone on that, and I was sore for at least a week. But I didn't dare tell Dad what happened. That's my turn to remember it.
Because there.
There's a lot of things I found out later in life about riding the steer cows in the back shed, and there was 2 feet of manure in there.
Wasn't nobody else. Any more information? I have to tell you, the story you told there. I had a similar one. It was for the July thing at the Leader Hall. And I had a young kid, and they were shooting off. All the young guys, they'd have fireworks, they'd shoot them all off. Well, those of you that remember the fireworks, they didn't all go off. Well, we weren't supposed to mess with those because they had a real short fuse. And I picked up one, and it looked pretty good. It was a big one, a black cat. That was the black cat with the big one. And my golly, went off my fingers. And just like you, I never ever told my parents my fingers were not normal for about a week anyway. They were numb and I thought they were going to fall off and worry about it. But I didn't dare tell them. I picked up that stupid black cat and blew my fingers off.
Well, if there's no more questions, I've got the first Motley record book here and the first Pillager record book in a Creamery. And Dave has later equipment stuff. And I'd like to have Dale Quinn from the Motley Historical Society come up and take this back. And we're not quite the upper class of our Motley and Pillagers. We don't really have what we do with them. And we have a problem with storage. And what's it? And but when you get
No.
You know,
I like just the books now. It's about
great. Hey, I said that all the time. Groups. So, they're so proud. So they done soon. I'll tell you, these people, they've been up my like 3 or 4 times was at the guild talking about this thing from, and these people don't waste their time. Yeah, they sure appreciate that. Everything that's one. This is closer, this is part of that, and I shall wait for the stick. I was just saying, while you're thinking your next question should be mentioned, 1 month from now, this first Tuesday of what's next, August, Sue is going to be doing a presentation on the local churches. So you want to be here for that one. We do, Mike North has also been busy on this. We're going to pick up, I told I just found another history. We're done. Aired it. I know that I'll get else just all out of the next one after that. If we get pushed out of the house. But really want to thank Gordon. Well, we think this is important because there's a lot of people who's got a lot of history in their head, but history in the head won't transfer very good 30, 40, 50 years from now. So these will be, we got Dan Haystead from down your company name is
Easy Street Productions.
And that is on Easy Street. Actually,
That's right.
Easy Street Productions, and the nice thing about having them record these are not but quality. We keep them on the Sylvan Town website. We offer to the Cass County Historical Societies. We have in the past had them on public television. I don't know if Lakewood's interested in them or not, but relate to the entrance at the church. But if they're interested in that, apparently we're done because Gordon took off. I really want to thank Gordon because we got
sending you.
We have some of these keepers of the knowledge, and if we don't pry it out of them somehow, we'll never be able to share it with other folks. So we really appreciate you guys showing up and let us know what you want to get next, and then we'll make sure Sue does it. So Sue's got cookies and coffee, and she's overdone it. I said she's the hostess with the most, and she's overdone it, but I think she wants to make sure you come back next time to her church one. That's why I said food. Yeah. So that's out there in Denver, but you can certainly enjoy it out there until it gets out. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.